can go ahead and get started. And thank you so much for everybody who took time out of your Wednesday to be with us. Austin's Legacy, we're trying to bring together nonprofits and CSR leaders so that you all can learn from each other and network and get some tips. And so today we are super excited to have Holly Ballard, who is with Austin's Clubhouse, as well as one of their members, which she'll be introducing here in just a moment when they get going, as well as Sarah Welton, who is with Longevity Partners, which is a CSR firm. And before we dive in with Holly's presentation, we would love for everyone just to take a minute and tell us who you are with. And so, Suzanne, could you give us information about yourself?
Sure, I'm Suzanne Coe. I'm Executive Director of Keep Texas Beautiful. We're a statewide nonprofit, but we are based here in Austin. And I think if you all are from Austin, you're probably familiar with our Austin-based affiliate, Keep Austin Beautiful. So we provide tools and resources to about 300 communities around Texas to help them beautify and improve their community environments. So good to be here. It's my first event with this group and just wanted to learn more about it. And I thought today's presentation sounded great. So it's nice to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, Jesse.
Oh, I'm Jesse. I am Executive Director over here at Rebuilding Together Austin. It's a national nonprofit, and I represent the local affiliate. We do home repairs and accessibility modifications for income qualified homeowners. That's where we're at. Great.
And Renata?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Renata Lemon. I am the Development and Communications Coordinator for Project Schoolhouse. We are a small but mighty international nonprofit that serves the country of Nicaragua, but we are based here in Austin. And we build water projects, sustainable water projects, along with latrines and school projects in Nicaragua. So we are located in a small, very central area of the country there, and we just serve the communities around where we work. So,
yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Sarah, you want to tell us just a bit before we get into your presentation about who you are?
Sure. You guys are making me feel like I'm in better company than I deserve. My name is Sarah Welton. As Whitney mentioned, I come from Longevity Partners. We're a global firm offering support on, as my boss would say, all things green for the real estate sector, with exception of green paint. So we look at ESG strategy and how companies can deploy, all the way down to, Jesse, I was going to actually immediately ask you about sort of asset level improvements, solar panels, that kind of thing that help to support that bigger corporate initiative. It's really nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And Erin, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Erin Arnheim. I'm the CEO of Legacy Collective. We're a group of givers that give monthly, and then we come together to nominate wonderful nonprofits around the world, and then we vet those nonprofits, and our donors vote on who gets those grants. We're actually a giving circle network, and so currently we've got about 8 giving circles in our network. We do individual giving circles, we do corporate and city as well.
And Juliana?
I'm Juliana Jordan. I am Legacy's new marketing communications specialist. I'm only about a month in, but I am absolutely loving it so far.
Great. And Holly, I will let you introduce yourself as you also lead into your presentation. So please tell us about yourself and your organization, and you can also share your screen when you're ready.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited to be here again. I've really enjoyed these meetings, something to look forward to each month. We are in the clubhouse and we've stayed open. So we are masked up because we're not currently socially distanced. As I mentioned earlier, I thought it would be nice for you to see our faces for a brief moment. So I'm going to show you that this is what we look like and then we'll put them right back on. We've really made an effort to stay open and keep our operations going in as safe a way as possible, and have had really good luck with that, but we'll talk more about what that looks like. This is Diane. Diane is one of our members, has been with us for about 3.5 years.
It's almost 4.
Almost 4.
After Easter.
Amazing.
That's how I found out about the place, Easter dinner.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know
Through a
that.
member of Susan Baker.
Great. So that referral was through a member. We have folks that will find out about us through their mental health care providers or through NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So lots of different ways that people come to us. So we'll go ahead and share our screen and get going here. Okay, so this is just an overview and photos of the fun bunch that we have. Lots of fun and vibrant activity going on at the clubhouse all the time. And we'll move on to our mission statement, which Diane is going to share with you.
Should I just read it?
Mhm.
Austin Clubhouse exists to provide, excuse me, to provide acceptance and empowerment so adults living with mental health diagnosis can pursue personal goals and play a meaningful role as co-workers, colleagues, family members, neighbors, and friends. And I'd like to say that I am a fulfillment of our mission statement. The clubhouse has done all of that for me. Maybe not so much family members, but I can't say enough good things about this place. I'm not lying when I say I probably would not even be alive if it wasn't for my membership here and being able to participate, be an active member.
Great, thanks, Diane. And Diane's going to tell you guys a little bit more about the work that we do and how that's impacted her here in just a second. Just a quick overview of us. I would like to know, just by a show of either hands, or you can raise your hand through Zoom, how many people have heard of Clubhouse before, either Austin Clubhouse or other clubhouses? Looks like 2 or 3 maybe. Great. So we are part of a larger family called Clubhouse International. The first clubhouse was established in New York City in 1948 under the name We Are Not Alone. So a group of folks who had recently gotten some mental health treatment and were looking for kind of peer support came together to basically, share those experiences and continue their healing journey outside of a clinical setting. This is now a 73-year-old evidence-based non-clinical model. What that means is that we don't do therapy, we don't do group work here, we don't do any of the traditional clinical things that you might look at, psychiatry. Those things all happen and our members are all engaged in some kind of treatment plan, but they come here to talk about strengths and to talk about desires, purpose-filled, meaningful interactions and pathways toward their goals. And so we really are focused on that as opposed to the diagnosis. Now, Diane can probably attest, I think folks do share their own experiences about their diagnosis or their struggles that they might be having, but that's not the focus of what we do here. It's just a place for people to feel safe. There are 300, did you have something to add to that? 300 local clubhouses, local meaning stateside, United States, and then in more than, outside of that, so United States, but also globally, there are about 300, maybe over that now. That's gone up in 30 different countries around the world. And we are an accredited member. What this means is that there are a list of standards, 37 standards that each clubhouse is to abide by. And we can demonstrate that we are abiding by that model. Actually, we are up for a visit here in April that some folks are going to come. It'll be a member and a faculty from Clubhouse International come and assess whether we're following the model and staying true to the mission. So we are accredited and we will be looking forward to that visit and another between 1 and 3 year accreditation moving forward this year. Again, focusing on strengths, talents, and abilities rather than diagnosis or weakness, and not providing therapy, but instead opportunity and community. So there are only 3 guidelines for membership. It's be over the age of 18. So we only serve adults, Aaron had mentioned earlier, and have a mental health diagnosis and be following a treatment plan. That plan can be any number of things. We don't have a set way that somebody has to be working their treatment or their recovery, just that they are actively engaged in their own health for the health of the community. So very, very few criteria there. and it's really open to anyone who meets those. So there's a lot of room there. Moving on to, that was our overview. So we'd like to talk about what we kind of do. What does a day look like at Austin Clubhouse? And Diane is going to share a little bit about our work and then also about how that work has impacted her life.
Should I read all this?
Sure. So we can, one thing we wanted to point out is that our members are our volunteers. So frequently in Austin's Legacy and other places, nonprofits talk about volunteer opportunities. We don't have volunteer opportunities that way because our members serve those purposes. So all the things that we're about to talk about, typically for a nonprofit, outside volunteers might be recruited to help out with, but because our members are here engaged in that work, we don't have volunteers in the typical sense. So yes, please just explain to them about our 2 units and then your story.
Okay, we do have 2 units, the operations unit and the vitality unit. Operations unit includes things like reach out calls, data entry. We do keep track of attendance on a daily basis and the amount of meals we serve for our donors' purposes to show that we are doing well. And let me see what else. Yeah, we do have a very nutritious lunch every day for $1. And I want to say that it's been by participating in the work order day is how I have gotten better, because I hadn't worked in about 30 years when I came here. All the computers and telephones were just, I didn't think I had any confidence that I could do that anymore. I felt like I'd lost all my skills. But little by little, because the staff, you don't like to tell them no because they're so encouraging and so accepting and understanding. It's the most amazing people I've ever met. No judgment. They've seen me at my worst, but they've made me my best. So I've learned to do a little bit of everything here. I started out in the kitchen. Sometimes I work in with the accounting and financing stuff, or I work with Holly. This clubhouse is my life, and just being an active member, I've been here about 20 hours a week most of the time, before COVID especially, because I am retired and I am employable again because of the things I've learned by participating daily in the work order day. But I'm like to also point this out, that I'm almost 71 years old. Statistics say that people with a mental diagnosis sometimes have a shorter lifespan, so I've already beat the odds. But I spent most of my life wishing I was dead. And the crazy things I've done in my life, I should have been dead 1,000 times, but I am still here. I'm still kicking. I do have kidney disease, so my health is going to be going downhill from here, but I feel better than I have in my whole life. This place values my opinion. They give me self-confidence. Like Holly said, we focus on what I can do, not on what I can't. I was the black sheep of the family. I think it's funny that I tell my sisters that the clubhouse feels, you'd be surprised how well the clubhouse feels about me, because they would beg to differ. I've put my family through so much. I've hurt a lot of people in my life, and I just this place saves my life on a daily basis. I'm meant to be here. I fully believe that this is my purpose in life and where I'm supposed to be.
Thanks, Diane. Still gets me.
I was gonna say, it's not fair to make me cry during your presentation.
I know, right?
Like I wasn't ready for this on a Wednesday afternoon. So
I haven't told you the half of it.
And that's exactly right. Even down to this presentation, right? Everything that we do is side by side with members. So there is no staff only or member only space or meetings. We really share the responsibility of the clubhouse. Clubhouses are actually intentionally understaffed, because with the idea that members will be propping up the work of the clubhouse without the members. Like, for example, if nobody's here in the morning to make lunch, we either call and have members come in to make lunch, or we don't make lunch. We don't do a service. We do, work side by side. And that's really the model and what it's all about. We're going to keep moving, and Diane, that's Diane's story. She may have more she wants to share, and we can keep moving through these slides. So our supportive programs are really a unique part of what we do here. We just saw Erin's comment, from one black sheep to another, way to go.
What does I get read?
Your story is so inspiring. From one black sheep to another, way to go. I love that. So our employment programs are really a cornerstone of the way that we help folks get from point A to point B. We're not any kind of graduating program, right? We're not here to like get people out and move through the program. This is a lifelong membership. We have folks that will come back in after 5 and 6 and 7 years of not having seen us. And it's just absolutely arms wide open, come on back. But what we do have is the ability to help people reach their goals. So employment is not a goal for everyone. There are some folks that are really just here to not be isolated and to have socialization, and that's absolutely wonderful. And then for folks who do have more specific goals, we're here to support those, employment being a key one. We have 3 different levels of employment support, but the most supportive level is called transitional employment. And these are 6 to 9 month placements with partners that we have, Goodwill being our primary partner. And within the first week or two, 20 to 40 hours of staff time is there to actually support that person. So be on site with them, even up into if somebody had to miss a day of work, one of our staff would fill in for them. So it's just a really amazing way for people to either re-enter the workforce or even enter for the first time and know that somebody has their back and that they're not going to lose their job if they have a bad mental health day or if they are having a struggle with, you know, completing a task at work. We also do various levels of other support. We have folks that maybe, for example, will come in with a job or get a job while they're here on their own, but we're here to talk about maybe it's their 90-day review and they're nervous about it, and we can talk about what that looks like, or resume building, all those sorts of things. We provide housing support as well. Again, we don't provide any services. That's not our goal, but our goal is to plug people into other existing services. So we do a lot of community relationship building with other organizations who are doing the kinds of work that our members might need. So that's housing, education support, and then we have a whole health and wellness program that includes that lunch that Diane was talking about. We also have yoga and qigong a couple of times throughout the week for people to participate in. So understanding that mental health is not just about, you know, your brain, it's about your whole health and wellness, and we really try to engage that with all of our members. Let's see. Our evening and weekend and holiday socials. So we talked about the work order day, right? We have data entry and lunch prep and grant writing and all the things that keep the clubhouse going. But we also, so that's sort of the part of the work order day that keeps the clubhouse going. But then we also have, back one, our socials, and our socials are just a time to have fun. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just, nobody's has any work to do. We're just there to show up and socialize and have a great time. So we do everything from, you can see a laundry list there. I won't read through all of that, but we get together once a month and plan those out. So members and staff can talk about the kinds of things they'd like to do. And we do one of those every single Thursday night from 5 to 8. We're open 9 to 5. So we model a business day, but then from 5 to 8 on Thursdays, we have a social one Saturday a month, and every major holiday we're open on the day that the holiday is observed. So it's really key because a lot of folks don't have a place to go for Thanksgiving or Christmas, or, you know, President's Day is not the biggest holiday, but we're open on that one too. But it's important for people to have a sense of belonging, not just on a random Tuesday, but on those days where it can be really isolating. So that's part of our mission, is to be open, and we do a 4-hour window each of those holidays so that people can be here to celebrate together.
Also, those activities on Saturday, whatever that we do, it only costs the members $1.
Right, exactly. So like lunch and those socials, they cost $1. It's a way that, you know, people can show everybody's buying in to the community, literally and figuratively, I guess. But what I mean is you're sort of being there to help support, but it's not prohibitive. So a member can give their $1 and be supporting this community by showing up and contributing in that way without being unable to participate because the level is not there. So it's keeps that accessibility for everyone. Good thought, Diane. The hybrid work order day. So as we all know, I mean, I think we've talked about this at Legacy before, we've all been pivoting for COVID for 2 years. How do we take what we're doing and make it work during these times when nothing is orthodox, right? So what we have decided to do, on and off, we've done different things. We actually worked outside under canopies for several months earlier last year. And we are now at the point where we feel like we've been really safe and have had a lot of success not having any transmissions among members. We still haven't had a single case of something going from one person to another within our community, which is miraculous. But it's really not, because people are so concerned about each other's welfare that they aren't going to come if they're sick. Everybody wears their mask, everybody socially distanced. You know, we really take great pains to make sure that this community stays healthy. But what we also understand is that everybody's at a different comfort level. So there are folks that may not be just enthused or comfortable coming into the clubhouse still, even with all that understood. And so we have adjusted our day. We went fully virtual, adjusted an in-person model fully virtual, which is amazing, for a long time. Now we are still having virtual opportunities for folks who can't participate in person. So that's 2 daily meetings, doing reach out calls, working on multimedia projects, data entry. We figure out a way to kind of morph all of these projects into something that can be done virtually, so that people can still participate, even if they don't feel comfortable being at the clubhouse.
And I'd like to add that I really admire their determination and persistence in being able to still be there for us, even if, in spite of everything and having to be closed. It was fun meeting in the summer outside till it got too hot. We'd close down about noon.
Yeah. It was bonding.
I'm here every day, unless I'm sick, but I'm here every day.
She is, and always doing something. There's never, if there's not something readily available to do, she'll find it. Very inspiring. So going back for just a second, or before we get into these numbers, I also would like to know, how many of you know somebody who could benefit? Maybe not personally, maybe it's second or third hand, but how many of you know somebody who would qualify for membership and who could benefit from what we're doing? You know, I think it's most of us. 1 in 6 people are living with a mental illness in this country. And that can be anything from depression to bipolar to schizophrenia. I mean, it runs the gamut, anxiety. And we don't talk about diagnosis. It's not something that we focus on here. That's up to people to talk about if they want to. But, you know, that number 1 in 6 means most of us know somebody who could benefit from a program like this. And I think when we talk about how many people have heard of us versus how many people think there's a benefit, we typically see that there's a difference. And so that's our work, really, is to make sure that people know that we're here in the community and that we're a resource for adults living with mental health diagnoses who want to belong to a community. So just a really quick, I know we're almost out of time here, a really quick overview of what we have done. 90% of our members report improved mental health. We've added about 85 or 65 lifetime members over the course of a year. We've added about 118, up from 64 in January, 3,400 outreach calls, 500 letters, 160 employed members, including 8 of those transitional employment positions that we were just talking about. So lots of success in 2021, and we're really looking forward to 22. Here's a quick snapshot of some of our community partners. We have partnered over the years with a lot of different organizations, both small and large, corporations, foundations, other folks in the mental health space, you name it. And then quickly, just wanted to get into funding sources as we're talking about corporate and social responsibility as it relates to our nonprofit nationwide. And this was a 2019 number, so I think it's changed a bit, but less than a percentage of donations from nonprofits came from corporations. And so we are really eager to establish those relationships. And you know, there are lots of corporations and CSR programs that are equally eager to find a place to give back, and we want to be a place. So if you look there on the left, our corporate giving represented less than a percentage point of our final totals in 2021. We have set a goal of 3% in 2022. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's, you know, 3 times what we were doing last year. So really grateful for the opportunity to talk about this today, because it's something that we are super focused on. and want to develop that program. So what does that look like? We have 2 special events a year. That's the main place that folks can plug in terms of sponsorships. So we have a Top Golf tournament. We just locked this date down yesterday, so I don't have a lot of information there. But on May 26th in the evening, we're going to be doing a Top Golf tournament, and we're going to be looking for corporate sponsors for that, as well as for players, and some peer-to-peer fundraising with teams. And then in October, we have our We Are Not Alone party, harkening back to the name of the first clubhouse that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. That date is not set yet, but that is a dinner where we have members like Diane telling their stories. It's just a really fun night, some great food, and an opportunity to hear more about what the clubhouse is doing and opportunities to give. And we do seek corporate sponsorships for that. And then finally, as I mentioned, we really are trying to build this program, and we are working on a giving society that would have different levels for corporations to support what we're doing in exchange for publicity and other things. And that's a question that I have, generally speaking, and maybe Sarah will talk about this, is what makes an attractive corporate giving package. But we're really excited about the possibility and the opportunities to develop that program more this year. Diane, did you have any last thoughts?
I don't think so.
All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. We appreciate it. My contact info is here. The Legacy folks also have that if anybody would like to get in touch. If you have anything from what we've been talking about, just to, hey, I know a friend who could benefit from what you're doing, and I'd like to get them plugged in for a tour.
That's me.
Oh yeah, this is Diane right there, front and center. So yeah, that's it for us. Thank you guys so much for your time, and we're looking forward to hearing Sarah's presentation.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. That was really interesting. And I love the idea of just celebrating everyone who comes to your organization and just finding everyone's strengths and just helping them be the best versions of themselves. That's great. And thank you to Diane for sharing your specific experiences with Austin Clubhouse.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone have any question for Holly or Diane before we move on to Sarah?
I just want to say thank you guys. I think of all the presentations we've heard over the months, which have all been incredible, to hear a personal story. I'm sorry my screen was off. I was trying to cook and I didn't want you guys to have to watch, but anyone who knows me knows I go to tears easily, but that was just so profound and so brave. And I just want to thank you for being willing to share your story with strangers.
You can't shut me up anymore. I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say before I go.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And so now we will switch it over to Sarah Welton with Longevity Partners. So Sarah, if you want to share your screen, we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Well, I don't know how you want me to follow that, is all I'm gonna say. So yeah, that's not fair. But not only, I love the presentation, and I was actually taking notes during it. And Diane, I just have to compliment your hair, because I also loved that. All right, let me try to get my screens managed so I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, as I was saying, I was taking just some notes, and I didn't know that the first clubhouse was called We Are Not Alone, but then when we were sort of chatting before this, that was what I kept sort of latching onto, because I feel like I'm going to present a much less heartwarming story, but it's still from the place of, this is sort of a reminder that we are not alone. And COVID sort of comes through all of this, and I think has, on many levels, has provided us a reminder that there is a distinct line that connects all of us. And for better or for worse, one of the lines is sort of this, the change of climate, right? And we were talking before the presentation started about the snowstorm that's imminent in Austin, or hopefully not coming for all of y'all. But it's just, last year, it probably seems much closer than that, when there was a huge snowstorm in Austin. And in I have a public health degree and an urban planning degree, and we would always refer to it, rather than global warming, we would call it global weirding, right? So there's just all these strange things happening, but a lot of it is predictable. And actually one of my former colleagues wrote an article about the experience in Austin that she went through. But anyways, I won't make you cry because that's not what my presentation is about, but I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that because I'm already at tears, but I cry easily too. After I became a mother, it's like I lost all control over my ability to keep a poker face. Anyways, my name is Sarah. Here's just my bio, nothing very terribly interesting other than I think public health and urban planning is a really cool combination of degrees, and I've been really fortunate to be able to use my passion toward human health and well-being and my interest in real estate, and to be able to combine those. Prior to being at Longevity, I spent about 7 years at the International Well Building Institute, where we essentially married up how do you create real estate in a way that supports and promotes the health and well-being of people. And again, I spent about 7 years and then have transitioned on to Longevity, where my focus is a bit broader. It's much more on sustainability, environmental and social sustainability. But again, end result, people are what matters. It's the whole reason. It's the whole reason that we even have real estate or anything related to the industry. Again, just quick information about Longevity. I mentioned this really briefly at the beginning. We consult on broad strategy for corporations, but then all the way down to asset level implementation. So we help with putting, solar panels on roofs of buildings. We help with certifying buildings, which is a very not sexy or fun part of the process, but it's one of the required sort of steps to help demonstrate through third-party assurance that a building is sustainable and is contributing and it's on its pathway toward, again, whether it's promoting health and well-being and or sustainability. And Renata was talking about her work in Nicaragua, and I'm really happy to say that we recently stepped into our 5th continent. So we are actually in South America now, as well as we haven't quite gotten to Central America, but I'm working on it. But so North America, Europe, Asia, what did I forget? Africa and South America. And I do apologize in advance if 2 small children make noise. They're mine, they're fine, they're safe, they're just obnoxious and loud, but so here's where we are. We are growing really, really fast. We are based, our US headquarters is in Austin, actually. And so I have some tactical comments about sort of employee or corporation giving people to talk to, but I also have sort of more general kind of thoughts about how maybe to reframe the conversation, because I always feel like when we talk about giving, when we talk about nonprofits, when we talk about these things, like it's all messed up. Like, no, I'm here for you. You are creating a better employment, situation within Austin, but through the work that you're doing. Diane is a better employee because of you. So it's not give to me. It's, hey, I'm helping you. So come on, pay your dues. But I'll save that for the end in my other as I continue through the presentation. These are many of the names you'll recognize are several of our clients around the world. But so as I mentioned, I wanted to focus in on climate change as sort of the we are not alone, linking it all together, kind of why do we care? And again, reframing the conversation, because so much of it, I think, has been positioned in an incorrect way because of corporations. And it's not only not helpful to move forward, but it's not reaching the end goal that we all collectively need to reach, that's going to benefit all of us. So it's sort of this spiting your nose, to cutting off your face to spite your nose. So just a quick briefer on climate change. I didn't want to, shame anybody for sort of not knowing what on earth we're talking about. And for what it's worth, I found this on the NASA Kids website. So, whenever you have questions about big topics, go to, some educational site for children. But just a quick reminder about like, what are greenhouse gases? What are we talking about with climate change? What's going on? So essentially, gases prevent the sunlight that creates heat from escaping. So the world gets warmer. Now, there's a lot of meteorological sort of events happening of where, winds come from and why that creates snowstorms in Austin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have that expertise. But just a very simple reminder, we talk about greenhouse gases. It's literally creating a greenhouse around the earth. On the right-hand side of the screen are the main sources of greenhouse gases. So one of the things I'll just point out is, oh, you should drive an electric car. That's the best thing to do. You driving is causing all these problems. Your driving is, sure, yes, you should drive an electric car. We need to create transitions away from sort of the GHG creating fuels, i.e. gas. However, drop in the bucket. We're not talking about a huge implication of your independent, you personally driving. Now, I live in New York City where I take public transit. Most people take public transit. So it's not our driving that's the number one contributor for us. It happens to be buildings in New York City. But my point is, and I'll sort of spoil my punchline, it's not about our individual decisions that is actually gonna have the biggest impact. Yes, we should make smarter decisions. Yes, we should reduce our meat intake because agriculture and beef production in particular creates a lot of GHG emissions. Yes, all these things we should do. However, there's a problem with this exclusively focusing on what I'll just sort of bucket in this reduce, reuse, recycle. It's very much blaming the victim. We are not the problem. We did not create these industries. My love, we did not create these industries. They're very cute, I promise. That's causing the problem. So, during sort of the environmental movement of the 70s, corporations kind of had this very smart joint session where they, came up with these catchy phrases of reduce, reuse, recycle, of all of these kind of, put litter in its place, all of these things that point the finger at us as individuals and remind us to do our part. And they quietly, failed to take any steps forward in actually making changes across industry that actually would have a much more substantial effort or much more substantial impact. One example would be, the whole, well, in fact, there was a funny story about the makeup industry, and I actually don't remember who the creator was or who the manufacturer was. But there's been this whole like push towards sustainability because it's very much in vogue with millennials and yada, yada, yada. So this company was like, oh, we'll make a shampoo bottle. I was going to just grab a bottle and we'll say that it's a paper bottle. Okay. So people bought into it. It was this big, they were really happy to have this new, much more sustainable packaging. Well, literally what they did, they put a paper label over a plastic bottle. So this woman cut it, and she did like a video on Instagram or Twitter and just cut it and was like, what's going on? Like, totally just thinking we'll take the bait. And oftentimes we do because we're busy yelling at our children or doing other things that are our full-time job, not worrying about, what's the most, she didn't have to have a PhD to figure out what's the most sustainable packaging. So anyway, suffice it to say, this whole concept of like reduce, reuse, recycle, it's just blame the victim, and it's just putting an onus on us when we're not, the problem. So this is an image very recently. In fact, I think like last week. My husband is Peruvian, and so he's not really a sustainability sort of loving person. And he's like, "Holy moly! Did you see this?" And I forget what the name of the Spanish oil firm is, but it'll come to me. So apparently, because of the shockwave sort of through the water, this oil tanker essentially spilled and has now contaminated the coast of the Pacific coast of Peru, and it's getting into essentially all their major water sources. I mean, these are children, right? These are children in a boat covered in oil. Like, for God's sakes, these are things I don't want to worry about because of these organizations that are not doing, that are putting out these externalities of their business operations, and they're not having to quantify them. So the same thing I would say about, my comment about employment is Austin's Clubhouse is providing a positive externality to these companies that they're not paying for. They're benefiting from the employment that you're improving. They're not paying for it. So it's not a donation, it's their dues. It's their dues. And again, with the packaging conversation, the reason we have plastic, the reason that we use plastic packaging is because it makes it more profitable for corporations to sell their goods. It makes them more durable. Oh, and by the way, plastic is an oil byproduct. So it's another derivative product for them to sell. So there's just all of these, sort of tragedy of the commons. It's they are taking advantage of this collective system and then again, putting the onus back on us. So, and again, it is not to sort of take away our responsibility. It should be, you should have to recycle, you should have to compost, you should have to do all these things. Yes, of course. But my tiny little impact is just null as compared to large corporations that are actually, at the root of the problem. I'll just sort of say it like that. So one of the things that my company does is provides them with the support to address some of these things. Now we don't do packaging. We look at real estate. We look at how can we create real estate that is, good night, my girl. Just going to take a nap. How can we create real estate that is the joys of working from home, right? That is being a positive contribution to the grid as opposed to just taking. And what I'll say about sort of this, the benefits to this is you can do it in a way that actually increases the value of real estate. And you don't have to take my word for it. So there's this really rich old white guy named Larry Fink, who happens to be the CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset management firm in the world. And he is by no means a sort of I shouldn't say it like that. He's not, this climate change activist, right? This is an old rich white dude who started an asset management firm and is now super successful. He happens to control $10 trillion of assets. So let's get back to how, is me composting every week all of the food that we happen to waste in my household, is that going to have an impact? Or is Larry Fink preaching to his 500,000 followers, plus his employees, plus all the other people that sort of just take what he says as gospel? Is that going to have a bigger impact, right? So I'm happy that we have people like Larry Fink sort of making these statements about, this idea around creating a more sustainable business. It's not about altruism. It's not about being woke, as he says. It's about creating a more sustainable business model. And so I sort of point to that. And I talk to a lot of, for better or for worse, old rich white guys who, are not exactly in this because they have their, as you might say, they're better angels speaking to them. They're in it for the money, and that's okay. We live in a capitalist society, and that's fine. There's a way to make it. We just can't have these externalities that are not being internalized by these corporations so that they can't poison the rivers and oceans of, outside of Peru. So these are just some of the business lines that we have to address real estate in particular, and create better spaces for people from that social sustainability standpoint, better buildings that can contribute to the environmental sustainability of the planet. And then lastly, create an economic business model that actually works and is something that a corporation will want to deploy because it is in their best interest. And, you know, by the way, it's going to be regulated by the SEC too. So they're going to have to, you know, disclose all these things too. So all of that is to say that maybe you cried during my presentation, but probably not for the right reasons. But with that, I'll ask if you have any questions, but then also sort of put it back on you and kind of think about, you know, maybe you think about this all the time, maybe you don't, but like, what are the ways that, you know, you are kind of making a difference for yourself to sort of mitigate climate change or improve health and well-being more generally? But have you thought about this before in ways that, you know, the way that you shop, the companies that you support? Are there any ways that you are kind of taking this to a bigger level, a more macro level, and are trying to make a difference that's, again, beyond yourself? But with that, I really appreciate your time and your attention, and again, for this opportunity to be able to speak with you guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Yeah, as you were talking, I was actually thinking to myself, I wonder if there's a resource where you can look up companies to see sort of their stance on environmental issues so that we can make better decisions as we do our shopping. Do you know of anything?
I may have to get back to you. So I may have some resources. they're not coming to me on the top of my head, but when I was at IWBI, these were like things that we would think about. Obviously, like it's the B corporation, that's a good signal. That's a really hard designation to get, being a B Corp. But increasingly, more and more companies are actually reporting out on this thing, because what they found is, particularly like, you know, I say millennials, but I mean kind of young, you know, kids these days, as I'll sound like an old lady, they're asking these questions of their employers, right? Mm-hmm. They're asking these questions of where they go to work, where they live, you know, what apartment they're renting. They're asking these types of questions. So I think increasingly the disclosure will be greater. Just Companies, JUST, Just Companies does a list each year, and they rank corporations on a variety of different metrics. But so I would say those are two good sort of signals to look at. But there is a lot of greenwashing. So that's sort of the one fear. But I think just even your point about like, where do we look? Like the fact that you're asking questions is the right place to start. And even that pressure is going to cause companies to disclose more and to be just a bit more thoughtful about what they are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the tide is turning. So that's good. And Jesse also made a comment about that it might be an option on some 401ks to choose socially responsible companies in their portfolio. So that's a really good point too. Does anyone have any questions for Sarah or even just comments? All right. Well, if you think of any questions or anything, then you can reach out to Juliana down there. Her email address is at the bottom. And so feel free to follow up if you have any questions about either of the presentations. And as she mentioned earlier, the presentation is being recorded and it will be added to the Austin's Legacy website. And so you can forward it to anyone who missed it, who might benefit from watching it. And so just watch the Austin's Legacy page on the Legacy Collective website for the information about the next presentation. And thank you to everyone for taking time out of your Wednesday. Does anyone, Erin, do you have any other follow-up thoughts?
Nope. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it.
That was great. Thank you very much.
Good. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you all
everybody.
so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Stay safe.